Hi everyone, this is the second video on Python for Beginners series. In the previous video, we talked about how to install Python. In this video, we are going to talk about how to interactively develop Python code using various platforms. From the next video, we will start learning about Python code development, basic syntax, variables, and other topics. So let's start. The simplest method to run Python script or Python code is through command line or terminal. We have looked at this before. Let's have a look at this again. So the simplest method is in the command line, you say Python, and then you start writing Python code, for example, print hello. You can import various libraries, various packages as well, like NumPy, and for example, print the NumPy version. You can also create variables like this. Now, this is good for interactively learn Python, but as the code will grow, it becomes tedious and it becomes very complicated to keep up with all the variables and all the codes. So in that case, what you need is you need something better like Jupyter notebooks or some other interactive development environments. Let's have a look at these one by one. The second option which I'm going to talk about is using Jupyter notebooks. Now, Jupyter notebooks are very powerful. You can run them online through platforms like Google Colab or Anaconda Cloud. And these are very powerful, especially for uh, those people who are starting to learn Python or you want to experiment with new stuff. So uh, you can go to colab.research.google.com and start running Python code. You can create your own Jupyter notebooks as well. It will be automatically backed up on your Google Drive as well. Similarly, there are platforms like Kaggle and Anaconda Cloud as well. You can sign up and then you can create Jupyter notebooks and start running the code here as well. Uh, the drawback with these online platforms is that these platforms are not free and they usually have limited number of hours or CPU usage time which you can spend on these platforms. So uh, you may need to run the code locally if you have to run for long hours. So if you want to set up Jupyter notebooks locally, what you can do is you can install Jupyter Lab and notebook in your Python environment using pip install. So once it's installed, then you can say Jupyter um, space notebook, and then it will launch a server for you. You can click on this web link or just copy and paste in your browser. So once you have done that, so you can easily run these Jupyter notebooks. So I can create a new Jupyter notebook here. And I can select my Python kernel. And I can start writing my code. Okay, so now Jupyter notebooks are good for starting learning Python, experimenting with different variations of your code. You can visualize your results as well, and you can, if you want to generate a report as well, these are very powerful. But as your program will grow, as you will start to build bigger packages, these Jupyter notebooks are not very suitable. So you may need to use some other development environments. And that's what I'm going to talk about, the other two options now. The next option which I'm going to talk about is PyCharm. PyCharm is built around Python development, and probably it provides the best interactive development environment for Python. So there are two versions of PyCharm. One is the professional version and one is the community version. There are differences which you can look at in detail, but PyCharm Community Edition provides most of the features you need for learning Python. All the base features are there, but there are some important features like running Jupyter notebooks. They're not allowed in the Community Edition. Also, if you want to run WSL in PyCharm, then it is not allowed in the Community Edition. It's only allowed in the Professional Edition. So let's have a look at this first. Yes. So I have got this GitHub repo, and I'm running Python, a PyCharm Community Edition. So first of all, it's very well integrated with GitHub workflows. I can, for example, check out the various branches which I have on GitHub. I can update, push, uh, and commit as well any new files on GitHub using the commit option. I can look at my pull requests as well. But again, pull requests the complete, if you want all the features, you need a professional edition. You can also interactively work with Python as we do in command line, so we can easily do in this window as well. So um, then we have terminal. We can open the command window, command prompt, or we can also um, run Ubuntu as well. The good thing about command prompt is that whatever interpreter you have set for your project, it will automatically load by default. And then you can have a look at your GitHub uh, remote and local branches and all uh, the graphs. So you can set various Python interpreters as well. So if you have multiple uh, virtual environments set up, you can select them from interpreter settings. You can also add virtual environments from WSL as well in the professional edition. Then you can install plugins, for example, from here. So I have installed Gitmoji uh, plugin, and I've also installed Rough, which helps with linting, and there are other plugins as well. You can browse through them, for example, for Docker and so on. So you can extend this beyond what's provided. Now, as I mentioned, you can view Jupyter notebooks in the community edition, but you cannot um, work with Jupyter notebooks in the community edition. You need professional edition for that. I have tested it on professional edition as well, but uh, PyCharm is not great if you want to work with Jupyter notebooks. You should use Jupyter Lab as I've talked about before, or you can have a look at Visual Code Studio, which I will talk about in a minute. So we can add a new Python file, for example, so my test file, and I can add it to Git as well. It automatically gives me that option. I can import NumPy as NP. I can so it tells me if there are any errors. So this means that in my virtual environment there is no package NumPy, so I need to install NumPy in my virtual environment. So once I've installed it, it will remove this error. So now NumPy is installed, and once the skeletons have been updated, you can see now there is no error for NumPy import. Um, okay, so it's showing me a warning for end of file. Now it's also showing that I'm not using NumPy in my code as well. So I can say zeros np dot zeros. So good thing is it provides you type hints as well while I'm typing my code. So it will tell me, for example, the shape. I can say 10 by 10, and I can, so if I don't specify the shape, the good thing is it will tell me, it will inform me still. I can say D type is np.uint 8. As you can see, it's still providing me the type hint for this first variable, which I can specify. So writing code in PyCharm, it's very user-friendly. It tells you any warnings, any errors in your code. It provides you type hints. But if you have the professional edition, then maybe you can get the best out of it. Still, if you're using Jupyter notebooks, I won't recommend PyCharm for that. Okay, let's have a look at the other option, which is VS Code. The next option which I'm going to discuss is Visual Studio Code, VS Code from Microsoft. You can install it on Windows, Linux, Mac. It works on all platforms. And you can use it for programming in any other languages as well. For example, if you want to do web development as well. The way VS Code works is that it allows you to work through extensions. You can add extensions for Python, Docker, GitHub, WSL. You can even work with remote uh, systems as well. So if you have an HPC and you want to run your code on an HPC, you can easily SSH as well and open your code and run directly through VS Code through these extensions. Also, it supports WSL without any professional version, so that's why it's one of the popular platforms, um, popular IDEs among students. So what you can do is you can install these extensions for Python, GitHub, Remote Explorer, WSL if you need, and all of the features which I've discussed in PyCharm, they will be here. So you can even look at different branches in your GitHub as well. You can open terminal, not only in WSL, but you can also open PowerShell or command window as well. So here I can connect to, for example, WSL and open my code directly in WSL. I can open my code here. And what I will need to do is I will need to set up my my Python interpreter. So what I'll do is I'll just say select interpreter, and it will allow me to it will show me all the interpreters which are available. So I can select my interpreter, and again I can start writing my code. So I can say np.ones, and similar to PyCharm, you can have all the type hints as well. So this is very useful. So you can then run your code as well. There are extensions for example, Gitmoji and rough as well, as I mentioned. Another important feature here is that you can directly run Jupyter notebooks in VS Code without buying the professional version. So what you can do is you can select your kernel for Jupyter notebook. So first of all, I think I need to install an extension. Once the Jupyter extension is installed, I can select kernel directly, and for example, I can select my base development kernel, and then I can run all the cells. I can just copy, for example, this code and run it here as well. So these are some of the popular methods to develop or run Python code interactively. From next video, we'll start coding in Python. We'll talk about the syntax first, and then we'll talk about variables and continue from there. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to this channel if you want to learn more about Python for Beginners series. Thank you for watching. See you next time.